Hey Kurt.
Hello.
Today, can we please talk about Subtle Sally and Gross Gordon? And for everybody else, this was a joke between Kurt and I of we were having a conversation about intuition, and basically you saying to me that intuition is being sensitive to the subtleties, and you've been helping me refine where my attention is, whether or not I'm paying attention to, just to be playful, but Gross Gordon, of the world, the wars, the this, the that, or whether or not I'm actually paying attention to Subtle Sally and those subtleties within my own body, within my own experience. And it's been really helpful, and I'd love it if we could explore that a bit more.
Of course. I think that's it's a really beautiful place to just inquire into, right? What is the mode of our operation? Is it that of Gross Gordon? Yeah. And to make that a little clearer, our gross point of perception really indicating that we are paying attention in most cases to the loudest things in our life, yeah, the thing that is making and creating most noise, yeah, drawing our conscious awareness to those things, yeah, and that loud noise may be conflict in emotional conflict in relation, financial problems, things not flowing the way we would like them to, projects, opportunities, all of these things keeping us really engaged. And then if we take that out of the personal field and put it on a planetary field, we're paying attention to potentially those loudest things in the world. What's going wrong? This is being enforced upon us. There's war here. There is, rule and regulation and freedom, freedom being taken from us, and rule and regulation being implied, enforced upon people to conform. These are all very loud things. Subtle Sally, we're wanting to tune into that degree of perception that is more acutely sensitive, yeah, sensitivity, paying attention to that which isn't so obvious. In those subtle fields of perception, there is a tremendous amount of information flying, let's say, under the radar, under the ordinary spectrum of human conception. We're not perceiving it, we're not recognizing it, we're not cognizing it. It's flying underneath the radar, yet it is a readily available source of information that is tremendously rich in its nature and very informative. Yeah. And in most cases, we are subscribed to that gross point of perception. We are conditioned in this way from a very young age. Yeah, pay attention to the loudest things. Yeah, or pay attention to how you are demonstrating yourself to the world, how you are being perceived by others. Yeah, always about that surface value. Yeah, the most obvious. We're not, in most cases, not often being directed to look at the subtlety, to pay attention to the essence of things, to the quality of things, to the nature of things, to the deeper dive into the inquiring of the makeup of life. And in turn, we are really missing out on a vital source of information that can help us not only conduct ourselves in a better way, but add a tremendous degree or dimension of richness of experience of life. If we're only paying attention to the gross and the most obvious, we are only going to get this much. But if we open to the subtleties of life, the richness and the depth, yeah, it's just like we're skimming across the top layer of the water, and we are not yet exploring the depths of the ocean. We are saying, I understand what the ocean is all about just by, jumping in and frolicking on those top few levels of water, a few meters of water, and yet never having an experience of what lies in the depths of the vastness of the ocean, which is immense, right? Immense. This is to a really beautiful analogy of how much we have only explored of human nature. We are only understanding the surface level, and yet out of our ignorance, our gross nature, saying, oh yes, of course I know what I'm about and what life is about and what this is all about. Just like we jump in the ocean and say, you know, I've explored the ocean, yeah, I've been in the ocean. Yeah, you have, but only like this much, you know. There's so much yet unexplored and unfathomable, vast source of experience and information to be gained and to be integrated and to be worked with and explored and understood on an experiential level. And this is why we have been speaking to those foundational teachings of deep listening, of presence, of meditation, of self-inquiry, yeah, is because this is our foundation. Yeah, this is the foundation that subtle receptivity is perceived upon. Right? In order to perceive the subtle, one has to be rather quiet, has to have the foundation, one, that they're here in the right place to receive, which is presence. Two, has to have adequately disconnected themselves from the nature of the thinker, of the mind, has created space. Yeah, and we've spoken to, and I'll just rehash now, that stepping out into that higher state of perception of the witness. Yeah, just like becoming the vast blue sky, watching the storms and the clouds and everything pass through me, yet nothing leaves its mark upon me, nothing smudges me or taints me in any way, if I am the vastness of that blue sky. We have a part within ourselves that is of that elevated state of perception that isn't moved, smeared, touched, or interfered with by that which is passing through it. Yeah. So we need to establish this state. Yeah. And in establishing that, we are able to observe any disharmony in the body, where subtle life force or vital life force energy is not flowing correctly. And we can address that. We can address also any blockages or conflicting bind or knot of emotional, unresolved, undealt with, suppressed, swallowed down, emotional experiences. This creates noise, and when removing noise, we're we're setting that foundation much clearer, much more stable, stable and vital in body, stable and vital and clear, and purification process has unfolded in the emotional field, and clarity and detached, insightful perception of mind. Yeah, these three pillars are literally the greatest work a human being can endeavor to do in one's incarnation. This is foundational, fundamental, preliminary work, yeah, for the unfoldment of what we would maybe determine as the spiritual man or the spiritual woman, which is a natural progression of refinement of body, refinement of the emotional field, and the refinement of the mental field, the lower trinity of man, the pyramid facing down, the triangle facing down. We then access the higher trinity of man, the higher principles of man, the upward trinity, yeah? And we start to unlock man's higher mind, higher intuitive knowingness, and higher faculties of love, wisdom, and intelligence. Yeah, this we could also name potentially like soul intelligence. This would be a a soul-infused human being, instead of the lower man being predominantly within the operational field of the ego. The substitute self is the lower man's vehicle of operation. And the higher man or higher woman's operational vehicle is that of the soul body, the light body. This is the higher trinity of man, just like the lower three must be explored, balanced, harmonized, and mastered. The higher three as well. Yeah, it just doesn't come fully online. One must master through thought, word, and action, the bringing into the world of one's soul intelligence and one's soul wisdom and soul knowingness, yeah, which offers a whole new experience for that individual. They embody those higher principles within their own nature and start to explore something that is, when we look at it from that perception, kind of less earthy, yeah, less of the earth and more of the spirit of fire, more transcendent in its nature, yeah, and more untaintable, pure, always burns pure. The earth in man can be polluted, and man's lower nature does become polluted through his gross conduct, yeah, through his thought, through his word, through his action, through his body, through his emotion, through his mind. He demonstrates his gross lower nature. He can distort these fields, yeah. He can not pay attention and disregard this human vehicle. He can abuse and accuse this human vehicle. He can deny it love and respect and reverence, yeah, just as he can do to his emotional field. He can allow suppression and the swallowing down and undealt with emotional experiences to just fester within himself. And same with mind that is unchecked. He can let that run rampant and create disharmony and project and play out, many disharmonious things until the human being is ready to take radical responsibility for the refinement of one's lower natures, and in turn starts to just inquire. Firstly, one needs to be able to look at it. So this is why I'm really pressing that point of the foundational teachings of presence, of deep listening, yeah, and of accountability. Yeah, we must be accountable, and we must be willing to look. If we don't look, we don't know. If we don't know, we can't adjust. We don't have the free will of choice. If it's happening unconsciously and nobody is alert of it, it just keeps playing out. We don't have choice. But the moment we can see it and recognize our patternings, then we have choice to either do something about it or not do something about it. But at least it's there, it's on the table. So circling back to our gross perception and subtle perception. Gross perception just being the most obvious, what one has been conditioned to see and believe and understand, and looks at the world, engages in the world, and mirrors the world's behavior, and lets one's lower nature be unchecked, and in turn obviously creates more of that energy, more gross things, allows distortion to be present, or in other words, disharmony. Distortion is just a facet of disharmony playing out. What I am endeavoring to do, and would love to continuously open that door and encourage people to inquire into, is setting that foundation. The more quiet we can be, physically, mentally, emotionally, removing those noises, yeah, creating a vital vehicle, an instrument that is ready to be played. that is far more acutely attuned to the subtle, then starts to perceive, engage with, and translate the subtle field of information. And at first this is rather challenging because you haven't yet translated, you don't know how to translate the language of the subtle. You understand the language of the gross because your mind, your body, and your emotions have been so deeply interwoven with the lower nature of life, but isn't yet calibrated to the translation of the subtle. But through that foundational teachings and application of that balancing of the lower three bodies, we are able to establish the correct landing pad, right, for exploration of the subtle, which is in turn us going into the depths of the ocean. So much richness there, so much beauty, so much mystery, so much magic, things that operate in different ways under the laws of different dimensional experiences. Different forces govern the space of the subtle. Different forces that we need the apparatus of higher sensory perception to translate the information there. And higher sensory perception, I mean, when this vehicle is acutely calibrated, its degree of sensitivity is heightened, yeah, incrementally at first, as we go incrementally more and more and more and more and more and more. Yeah, just like a measuring device or a weighing device being so subtle that it picks up on micrograms, right? Tiny, tiny, tiny. Yeah. We need to bring it in, keep refining to the tiniest of tiny, and then we're able to move into those higher fields of sensory perception we have in the past called these psychic senses. Yeah, these are the senses beyond your five ordinary senses of perception. We call these our higher sensory perceptions of higher seeing, higher knowing, higher hearing, yeah, our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, our claircognizance. It's a cognition, yeah, a sentience. We're moving into, pardon me, the fields that operate under different dimensional laws, and in order to do so we have to bring on those higher senses in order to translate and transfer and work with the information that's stored there. And in doing so we're accessing that part of ourself that laid very dormant for some time. But this was the magical part about being human that we always wondered about, right? It's where the mystery lives. It's the ability to read information in ways that the ordinary human being is completely oblivious to, yet it's there. Mm-hmm.
It's like the sky.
It's always there, right? And this is where like this whole wonder and awe, like a childlike nature starts to re-establish itself. It's that breath of fresh air again, of excitement, like the child is in wonder and awe of it. My gosh, I can read thought and transmit thought and ideas and vision without word. Telepathy is real, that I can feel into the energy in the room and read the subtleties of what has been, what might be, right? All of this information, we enter into a vast storehouse of information, depending on the degree of sensitivity, let's say in the student, in the seeker, varying degrees of sensitivity. Those at first are just picking up on the subtleties and noticing. Synchronicities start to come into their life. They're inner compass of intuition, or intuitive knowingness of what feels really good and what doesn't, starts to be pursued and an active force in one's decision making in life. And then later on, as the degrees of sensitivity refine, one then enters into much deeper states of relational engagement with the divine within themselves, into the serenity of the inner sanctum. They start to be like a moving, breathing prayer in the world. They're emitting and broadcasting something tremendously valuable. Their inside is sharp beyond their age. They start to perceive and engage with and explore things beyond the comprehension of man, which at times sound completely barbaric, because there's no point of reference, I understand, but the degree of that moves higher and higher into greater and greater states of mastery, into knowingness that is mind-boggling to any human being, would be determined and seen as very supernatural power. But it's not. It's innately designed into human beings. The fabric of your DNA holds the codings of all of this information. An ability to tune into that, to be in sync with nature, with the stars, with humanity, to be able to perceive and receive information being broadcasted from all around the world, to be able to see places without physically being there, to be able to comprehend and cognize information beyond one's current experience, and have full comprehensive understanding of that information, what to do with it, how to apply it, how to direct it, why it's there. So much. But we have always been operating thus far, in most cases, from that gross state of perception, only paying attention to the obvious and only feeding into the obvious. And that gross is like having the stereo blazing. Yeah, we're in a room together and the music is so loud that we can't even really have a conversation. I can't hear the subtleties of your voice. You're yelling at the top of your lungs to communicate whatever it is you're communicating. But we start to dial that down and down and down and down. Then you can hear all the little nuances. You can hear the other ambient sound in the space. You can pause in that space in between and just drink from that for a minute. There's so much there. So much.
It's like what you said last time about when Buddha was asked what he'd learned, it's actually the unlearning. And it's interesting, I was getting the visual as you were talking about the depths of the ocean and the layers, as far as it being almost like that mixing pot and we're about to bake a cake and we have to bake these layers, but each layer has to rise in order to support the top. But yet we're so impatient that we take that out of the oven too early and then cakes collapse. But then we're filling it with icing, trying to smooth it over. And it's like, oh, if we had that foundation, it's already there.
Yes. So good to start with foundation. And I was actually having a conversation with a dear friend the other day, and he was asking why I teach the way I teach, because as he has come to know me in our engagements and conversation, I had obviously spoken to many metaphysical, higher dimensional seeings and understandings and so on and so forth. He's like, why do you teach meditation? And he was answering his own question in that way, because he was unpacking that, right? And he was like, is it because meditation is the foundation that everything rests upon? It's the door that unlocks the way, right? Without that, those greater experiences of one's expansive nature can't be explored. And this was so true. And I said to him, I in fact went about my own journey in a very different order. And what I've done through reflection upon my own journey is put things in their rightful place. Not to say that that was not rightful, but was it most effective in its sequence? No. I was gifted the capability, or let's say an active higher centers. Yeah, if we're talking about our energetics or the chakra system, I was very active in my seeing from a very young age. I had the ability to perceive that which lied beyond the veil. I was able to perceive past loved ones that had passed, and this was far before I had I had no point of reference. I didn't even know what I was seeing, so it was very confusing. And I would see into other planes of existence, and it was so vividly real, so real that again it created confusion because I had no outer reference of what I was seeing. To me it was as real as anything else, if not more real. It felt more real. My relation to it, my sense of its reality was profoundly deep. And it wasn't till later years that in my life that I brought in the teachings of presence and silence and really brought that into check. But I was always gifted vision from a very young age. I saw that in the way of translating the information I was receiving in those higher states of consciousness, or in meditation, or in those moments I would perceive altered states, was much better translated when I had the foundation of deep listening, of silence, of presence. I was in the right place. I was ripe. I was mature. I had done what was required to really have the correct faculties of translation available. Whereas before I had all these visions and patterns and geometries, and could see the blueprints of things and the energetic makeup of things, and I wasn't yet clear enough, I wasn't yet silent enough, I didn't have enough vital life force energy in this vehicle to be able to engage in it and understand it in a really clear and precise manner and work with it in a way that could serve my fellow humanity. But as I journeyed through those stages of producing and developing and strengthening that muscle of deep listening and silence and vitality and strengthening intuition, that proved to be ultimately beneficial and complementary to this. So I kind of did it a little back to front, which is perfectly okay if people are that just unfolds organically, good. But for the unfoldment of it in a good way, I always suggest that we set that foundation. Otherwise the cake collapses on itself and we have to do far more work to preserve it. So foundation is paramount,
And you can metabolize it in present time.
Yes. It's less overwhelming to the nervous system of the human being. And when we've established those foundational things, what we're doing is upgrading the nervous system in the body as well. So we're able to house a higher degree of vibratory energy or electromagnetic energy in the body. And that energy passing through is like upgrading the electrical circuit. If we have a high voltage of electricity passing through it, we need thicker cable, we need to direct it, we need stronger grounding. Otherwise we'll burn the circuit out, and the nervous system is like an electrical circuit. So it is incrementally upgraded as one expands into new states of perception and refinement and mastery. And as the nervous system is able to accommodate more energy, one can hold that healthy state of stability and also redirect that energy passing through them. They're housing literally a higher degree of electromagnetic energy in the nervous system, and can direct it at will, for many benefits, and also for stimulation of higher centers. The higher centers of man are stimulated by the means of this energy. And when one comes into clear body, clear emotion, clear mind, is connected to the higher aspect of their human experience, or their soul intelligence, starts to then see that they can stimulate, cultivate, produce, and direct energy. And this is what we have seen in many ancient scriptures and in many ancient texts as the rising of the serpents, the kundalini energy. That rise, the staff, which is the spine. The serpent is dormant in the base, only ever stimulated mostly in ordinary human conduct, in sexual engagement, but only released and stimulates in the base and is released. The master who is refining, or the student that is building and working with these higher things, can stimulate that energy and bring it higher, into higher centers of activity, therefore activating what lies within those higher centers, eventually able to pull it into the higher centers through their cosmic vision, the vision of unity, into altered states of being, just by stimulating energy inside. Yeah, and we could speak on that all day, but it's nice to touch on it just to intrigue, and sort of with just like adding that little bit of detail in the picture of like, there's something there. If we follow these things, if we can apply ourselves, there's so much more there, yet unexplored, and at this point in time, potentially not worth speaking on, because still homework to be done. Right? We don't like skipping ahead of ourselves, because we'll try and bypass the necessity of doing this, sometimes a little bit challenging work, just for the shiny thing. I want to see the things, I want to know the things, I want to bring the energy up. Yeah?
Still got to bake the cake before you get to the icing.
Yes, right. All good and well, we get there, but we do this good work first. Yeah, and that's only going to improve everything. It's going to improve your quality of life, the way you engage, the way you conduct yourself, the sense of purpose in life grows exponentially in the human being. That is living each day to refine oneself, to access more of oneself, to come into greater refinement in the way I am thinking, the way I am speaking, the way I'm acting, and holding myself as a man or a woman in the world. This is contributing something tremendously valuable to the quality of your own life and the quality of the environment that you're in. Right? It's this I see as the way forward. Right? If we are bringing ourselves back to that, we're only going to create more beautiful things. Because once you come into deep relationship to oneself, there is no hurting other. You just can't do it. You can't inflict harm, whether it's emotional harm, physical harm, psychological harm. You just can't do it. When you understand self, you can't inflict harm on another. And you have deep patience and reverence and respect and compassion towards all forms of life, just as they are. You don't will them to be any other way. You come into this deep acceptance of what is, which leaves you in a deep state of rest, that you're not here to meddle. You can share what is alive in your heart and hope that that is infectious to others in a beneficial and helpful way. But even that is just an offering. You still accept whether they listen or not listen. But if the energy is there to share, just like I'm sharing and we are sharing, then we share. If it's helpful, good. If it's not, All good?
Yeah.
It's fun? So we're just here, you know? So I'm always coming from that place of just wanting to serve and to share what innately arises within me and expresses itself through me, with the intent that it may serve others in good ways, to come to clearer seeing and deeper understanding, and to move into more intimate relation to life and to one another. And to me, that paints a really beautiful picture of us cooperating with one another in a more effective, efficient, and harmonious manner, in turn resolving and dissolving the disharmony that has presently arisen in so many environments in the world. So it is a bigger picture, holding the bigger picture of where we are progressively moving, and just reminding, patiently reminding. Yeah.
Those reminders.
We love and appreciate. I appreciate reminders.
Yeah.
I think if we can just keep reminding, and sometimes it's a little repetitive, we speak on the same thing and just come from a different angle. It's repetition is helpful for remembering, because we're quick to forget, even if it's yeah, I see what, oh yes, I understand, that sounds amazing, and then la-di-da, we're off here again. What? I forgot, damn. But if someone gently reminding again in new and creative ways, and reminding until it's solid, right? Solid, just like a child learning how to walk in a couple of steps and falling, but you just sit there and walk. I remember my son walking for the first time. We would sit, and he would in between us and walk towards us, and would flop himself into your arms, but go a little further back and encourage. Come on, you can do it, right? And this is like what we must do with each other, right? It's an endearing feeling of, it's okay, come, like, I got you. If you fall, I'll assist in catching you, yeah? Sometimes you're going to bite the dust, and that's okay. We'll brush it off together, but I'll be there with you, yeah? But encouraging, and soon enough we catch on to it. Just like the child, once they figure out, oh, this is what it's about, then all of a sudden they're running, right? Within 2 days, they figured it out and almost mastered walking, right? They've become very capable of what they're doing. Same with people. I think once it's there, and they remember. There's something in them that remembers, and they can hold stability in it, and they can carry it, yeah? And they progress on to the next stage of development, and so on and so forth. But let us be humble, yeah? One of the greatest qualities of that higher nature is humility. Right? We want to be humble by nature. In your refinement, you are no better than anyone else. Yeah? You may conduct yourself in a more effective, harmonious manner, but that doesn't mean you're better than anyone. Always be humble. Be known as the humble one. The gentle and humble one is always revered by all, respected by all, and appreciated by all, because they don't put themselves on any pedestal. They never see or project any feeling that I am greater than. Even if their knowledge and their wisdom may be vastly rich, there's nothing in them that proclaims anything. Right? They are just as everyone else is. Right? This keeps us in a good way. Come back to that humble, soft, gentle. That's wisdom.
The present moment's never really going to ask of you to stand on a pedestal, is it?
No. Ask you to stand right here with everyone else. So we are all just walking each other home. I think if we continue to do so, we will create beautiful things. So let us not overlook the simple. Let us not overlook the work that is required. Let us remember these are our main three lower bodies of operation and experience and perception. Physical body, emotional body, mental body. In refinement of the lower nature, we move from the operation of gross into the subtle, varying degrees, like water boiling. Yeah? Boiling it until it evaporates. Yeah? Then it changes form. So the essential spirit in the lower nature is then shifted from water in its dense form into vapor. And one rises into the higher trinity, the triad of the higher self, and in turn has access to greater wisdom, to greater willpower, and to greater insightful creativity, right? Your intelligence, which gives you so much more, a vaster spectrum of experience and exploration, and in turn this is the other half you are looking for. Yeah, I'm looking for something. I want to know myself. This is the part of the self that one really wants to know. They have explored the lower self, not yet explored fully refined, but is aware of that. But man is not yet fully aware or conscious on the higher plane of his higher self or soul self. So we are endeavoring to open that doorway to the higher self and infuse the higher and the lower together until we have a harmonious being that is connected to the higher as above and to the below, so below. As within, so without, there becomes this beautiful mirroring of harmony on all planes, of all planes. But let's leave that a little shrouded in mystery for the seeker to explore for themselves and to come up with what they find. That's the beauty of it. We can just touch on a few things and give a little taste and say, come this way. But one must go themselves. Right? That's the beauty. One must go themselves.
The child has to take the steps, doesn't it?
Yes. We can encourage all day, but they must take the steps. Yeah. Very good.